I'm going to bring in Senior as well in this conversation. Senior, your response to what has been said by Russia as far as the multifaceted relationship between both the nations concerned. Geeta touched upon it as well a few moments ago, talking about this whole gamut of the relationship that both countries have: economic, trade, historical, cultural. And this is something that is reflected in this bilateral as well, as far as the takeaways here and the deliverables here from this bilateral is concerned, isn't it?
See, of course, you have to see the backdrop of this particular meeting because in the past few weeks, actually Washington, which considers New Delhi as its partner, as its important strategic partner, has moved completely, against India, imposing the tariffs, threatening to impose more, saying that it's over its energy trade and defense trade with Russia. But I think the view from Moscow and the view which we read and hear from India as well, that it's not much because of India's relationship with Russia. It's rather an instrument to, coerce India into, whatever trade pact and other relationship that are favorable to the U.S., which is we go back to today's statements by Russian and Indian leaders, coercing someone and threatening someone to get better deals is not the way. If you see, I've been covering Russia-India relationship for past 15 years, and for the past decade, the relationship has always been good and steady and nice because there is a lot of warmness. It's not just transactional like it happens with other countries probably, but the ties have not, the economic ties have not been growing that fast. Of course, Russia, the Soviet Union at that time, helped India's economy right after independence. It had a lot of influence. It helped building factories, steel factories. Then there was relationship in oil refining and so on. But what we see in the past 3 years is a totally different dynamics. And it's not just the oil trade. It's not just defense trade, which are considered the common pillars. It's something more than that. It's a lot of cooperation in technology, in education. It's not something that the countries necessarily publicly talk about. Again, because of sanctions, because they want to keep it to themselves. But we can clearly see the change. And why it is happening? Because both Russia and India know that they can trust each other. They will not go into all this tariff policy or, let's say, unexpected voting in the UN or things like this. They have this trust at all possible levels. It doesn't mean that they are completely agree on everything. And again, Prime Minister Modi has been saying since 2022, since their meeting in Uzbekistan, right, that this is not the era of war. But by saying that, he's, probably translating the feeling in the entire global South, which has been affected by the conflict, not by the conflict per se, but by the geopolitical changes, by the enormous sanctions that were imposed on Russia, which has broken the entire supply chains across the world. This has affected the globe. But he never told Mr. Putin, okay, do this and that, because he knows that Russia and Ukraine will decide how to basically end this conflict. I remember India was asked many times, and Mr. Jaishankar was asked many times whether India will act as sort of a mediator. And what India said, that if such requests come, India is open to, but it has never proactively, unlike US President Donald Trump probably, said that it wants to be a peacemaker. India just says that we need peace, and everyone says that yes, we need peace.
Right. But
how to
the big
achieve
question
is
that have we done enough to carry a signal, isn't it, Senior? I'm going to also bring in Geeta in this conversation, Geeta Mohan, and Gaurav continue to be with us. Okay, going back to, in fact, Geeta in a moment from now, Gaurav also, in fact, Xenia continues to be with us. Gaurav, India has never really actively, in that sense, played the role of a mediator, isn't it? India did not travel to Alaska. It was Donald Trump trying to broker that peace. In fact, as far as the meeting in Alaska was concerned, but has that signal been carried to Putin, given the call that was made from the Ukrainian president to India, to Prime Minister Modi, yesterday, as far as this meeting is concerned between, in fact, Russia and India today? Has that signal been carried, Gaurav?
So historically, India and Russia have been very close, but do keep in mind when the Soviet Union split and Ukraine became an independent country, India was the first country to recognize even Ukraine. So India's ties with Ukraine have been historic and equally significant. Point one. Point two, it was Ukraine that chose to sell military hardware to Pakistan. For example, when India was buying the T-72 tanks from Russia, the T-80 UD tanks were provided by Ukraine to Russia. At the same to Pakistan. At the same time, India did not stop buying either the AN-32 medium lift transport aircraft, which was the lifeline of the Indian Air Force in the Siachen Glacier, because these are short takeoff aircraft, very, very powerful engines, Antonovs that are manufactured in Ukraine. In fact, Kiev was the factory which was destroyed in Russian bombing subsequently. So India continued taking not just the Antonov aircraft, AN-32s after AN-12s initially in the 1950s and 60s, but also ship engines were coming from there. A lot of other equipment was coming from there, military equipment, and Indian medical students were studying in Ukraine. So India was equalizing its relation both with Russia and Ukraine, much closer to Russia. However, when this war happened, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was invited both by Russia and by Ukraine. He went to both the countries, delivered each other's message, but the point was sit with each other and find a solution.